Okay, so for 2.9, we'll see as this is a very straightforward lesson. It's going to involve percentages of one number relative to the other. I'm going to give you two ways of going about it. In the past, you may have learned the is over of method, which works greatly, fairly efficiently. I'm going to give you another method, which is a quicker version, which I think ultimately with practice you can do in your head, as these are quite applicable to everyday real life problems. In any case, for our notes, we are section number, this is 2.9, percents. The objective is determine values of some number. Determine values on percents, meaning we want to find this number is what percent of the other, or we know this number is what percent of some other number, or find the percents. Let's go ahead and skip predictions. Hopefully we're solid with these. Cross multiplying, 3 times 8 gives us 24 equals 2x. Equals 12. We divide. Note to the sub, if at any point you need to pause this for the students to catch up, that's certainly fine. Sometimes through the video I might actually say pause the video. Change 73%. Anytime we change a percent, that's 73% out of 100. So as a decimal, we move the decimal place over twice, 0.73. Change 4/5 first in your calculator. If you're unsure, you can hit the math button, math, and then the first one, which I believe looks like this, you simply hit enter. And they'll go to your home screen and you hit enter again. So you hit 4/5, then math, enter, enter, and that will give you a decimal of 0.8. If they want it in percent form, that doesn't mean decimal form, so we move the decimal over twice, insert a 0, and that would be 80%. 1% to decimal, if you move the decimal place over twice, that will give us the decimal of 0.01. Okay. A percent is a ratio that compares a number to 100. So for instance, 50% same as 50 out of 100. You can think of 2/4 out of $1 that you have 50% of $1 and so forth. Now, there are two ways of setting this up. The is over of is equal to x over 100. So based on the wording, we put whatever number we have in the is spot, and whatever they have the of, we put there, equals some number x over 100. The other way I like doing it is saying what number is equal to what percent of another number. This is the method that I prefer, because that one, it's fairly easy to plug in. You're plugging in two of the variables of the three, and based on the question, it's typically set up in that form. And all you have to do then, instead of having to cross multiply and then divide like we do with with a proportion, this you simply have to divide. The one other step you have to do is move in or out of, or you have to move out of decimal form into percentage form if necessary, but that doesn't happen all the time, and when you do, it is fairly easy. So I'm going to use that x equals p over y, or p times y. You can use e is over of equals x over 100 if you'd like, but I'm going to simply show the x equals py. So within this equation, they're going to give you either the number and the percentage, and then you have to find the other number, or they're going to give you, for instance, the number and this number, find the percentage, or they're going to give you a percentage of a number and figure out what that is on the other side. So wherever the question is, that's simply where the variable is. What is what? Some number we don't know is x. Is, we always write is. 30%, we don't want to write as 30%. We want to write as a decimal, so we move the decimal place over twice, which gives us 0.3. Of is multiplication. So we have 0.3 times 70. Once again, what we have x is equals percent is p, which is 0.3 of 70. 0.3 of 70, way you can do that in your head is first figure out what 10% is. of course you could do this in your calculator, but 10% of 70 would be 7. Well, this is 30%. 7 is 10%. If we want 30%, you take 10%, multiply it by 3. 7 times 3 gives us 21. Do you have to do that? No, you obviously can use your calculator. For number 2, you have the exact same situation. What number, x, and then we have is equals 25% as a decimal is 0.25 of 80. And then 0.25 times 80, or 1/4 of 80, is 20. You can figure that out in your head or use a calculator. For number 3, if you could please pause it and see if the students can do number 3. For number 3, we have the exact same situation. What distance, that is x, is our equal sign. 0.25 of 600. And you want to do 0.25 times 600. Another way you could do this, 1/4, 0.25 is 1/4, so you want 1/4 of 600. Well, an easy way to do 1/4 is to divide the number in half. That will give you half of it. And then if you divide a half in half, that gives you 1/4 of it. So what we're doing is we're taking 600 divided in half, which would give us 300, and then take 300 and divide it in half, which gives us 150. Okay, so let's look at number 4. With this situation of x equals p times y, what information do they give us? Well, they give us 210%. So that goes into the percentage. If we move the decimal place over twice, that would be a decimal of 2.1. Of 8, meaning we're multiplying by 8. The of means multiplication, so that goes in the slot of y. What number is x? So essentially, we have the exact, so not essentially, literally have the exact same problem. It's just worded a little differently. So that ends up being, let's see, 16.8. That should be right. Yes, that's correct. Just check down the calculator. Okay. Here it says find 4% of 36. So write out your equation, x equals py. We have the percentage, so let's plug that in for p, 0.04, of 36. Of is multiplication, so that goes into y. And then we don't have x again. Again, we have 4%. So to figure that out in your head, what you can do is first find 1% and then multiply it by 4. You don't have to do this. I'm just trying to give you mental math tricks to help yourself out. That would be 0.36. Well, that would be one of those. Two of those would be 2 times 36 gives us, what, 72? 72%. And then if we double that, that would give us 144? Yes. So x equals $1.44 or 144. So let's see. Let's find 4% of 36. 1.44, that seems reasonable, yes. Okay. For number 6, we have the exact same situation. 0.2 is the percentage of 60 is what number, just to stay consistent. Let's put the number on that side and then multiply those. 10% of 60 is 6 times 2 will give us 12. Okay, for this, we still are using the same equation, relating two numbers by percentages. X equals py. $14 is, they give us the x, $14 is our equal sign. 25% is 0.25 of what amount? We don't know y. So we really don't need the parentheses there. This is what we're more typically used to looking at. Sorry, let me write it correctly. 14 equals 0.25y. And that is simply, what do we do to solve for y? We're multiplying by 0.25, therefore we divide. So 14 divided by 0.25 is going to be 56 for y. You can do that in your calculator. Or another way you could do that in your head is 14 divided by 1/4 is the same as multiplying by 4. So 14 times 4 is 56. So subplot B, right, number 2. Okay, if we look at number 2, we have 52 is, they give us the x because they have 52 and then is, 0.15 of what number would be y. We're dividing by 0.15. And if you plug that into your calculator, sorry I ran out of room, you end up getting 346.6 repeating equals y. The next other 4 of those 6 problems are a combination of those 2 setups, meaning either they give you x or y. Okay, now for number 3, we're simply finding the percent within the equation x equals py. You are now given 16 is, so 16 is your x. You don't have the percent, so let's just simply write p of 29. Well, if we make that, you don't have to do this. You could see it already. What would equals 29p. We put the variable after the coefficient. You divide 29. You now have 16 over 29. If you divide that in your calculator, you will get 0.55. Just round to the nearest 2 decimal or the nearest hundredth. That's the percentage. But we don't want it in decimal. We want it in actual percent form. So we move it over twice. So our answer is 55%. So pause it and do number 2. Or let the students do number 2. Okay, for number 2, we have 12 people is what percent of 60? Again, of the x equals py, we're given the number is, we're not given the percent. Of 60, of means multiplication. To solve for p, you could do the same thing as I did in number 1, or simply divide. 12 over 60 reduces to 1 over 5, which is 0.2. And of course, you could have just done that in your calculator, move the decimal place over twice, and you can write p equals 20%, or just 20% is your answer. The other problems on here are exactly the same, but just worded a tiny bit differently. Go ahead and give your homework a try, and then we'll look at it together on Wednesday.